This hour, we're focusing on the tail light of defendant Karen Reed's Lexus SUV. Here's what Carrie Roberts, John O'Keefe's longtime friend, told the jury on her direct examination about her memories of that awful morning.
When you came out of Meadows, did you have a chance again to look at the defendant's tail light on her Lexus?
Yes, when we left the house, she pointed it out to me.
Did you stop and get a closer look?
Yes, I did.
I want you to describe to the jury your best memory of what it looked like.
Karen pointed out and said, "Look, my taillight." And she said, "Do you think I hit him?" And I said, "No, I don't think you hit him. What are you talking about? Let's just go find him." But the taillight itself, the piece was missing. And as you got closer, there's a metal sort of square, and one of the pieces was sort of sticking out. And I only remember it because I thought if someone walks by that, they're going to catch their jacket on it.
How long of a time did you have to actually look at the taillight?
Under a minute.
How close were you to the taillight when you looked at it?
I was in front of it. I could see.
And when you talked about the taillight, you said a piece was missing. Is this the left side or the right side of the Lexus that you saw the piece of the taillight missing?
It was the right side, so it was the passenger taillight.
May I approach?
Yes.
May I recognize what is in that photo?
That is Karen's SUV.
Is it similar or a fair and accurate depiction of how you saw the vehicle that morning?
Without the snow, I can't be positive, but this square piece was missing, as is in this picture.
The photograph you look at is not the car in the snow in the driveway the day you saw it.
Correct.
Putting that aside, is that a fair and accurate depiction of the damage that you saw to the right rear taillight of Miss Reed's car that morning?
Yes.
I'd move to introduce this as an exhibit, please.
Any objection?
No objection. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish Exhibit 13.
Sure.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you to take a look at the photo that you just described. Do you see the white area in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that where the taillight had missing part?
Yes.
And where was the metal in relation to that white part that you see?
If you look at the white part, it's the upper left. It's sort of like a rectangle, but it's vertical, sort of.
And that's the metal part that you were concerned about?
Yes, one of the sides, it's almost like an encasement, but the right side, I think it was the right side, was sticking out a little bit, like out from the car toward me.
Did you express any concern about the metal sticking out?
Yes, because I thought at that height it could clip someone's coat or something if they were walking by.
You mentioned the defendant asked you if you thought she hit somebody.
Correct.
How many times did she ask you that?
She asked me that in the driveway. How many times? She said, "Do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him?" And my answer was, "No, I don't think you hit him. I'm sure you hit something because your taillight's broken, but I don't think you hit him." Why would I think that?
Did you have any reason to think at that point that she hit anybody?
No.
Did she ever repeat that phrase or question in the same or similar manner again that night?
She did at the scene where we found John.
So that was Carrie Roberts. Now let's listen to another dear friend of John O'Keefe's in her testimony. Jennifer McCabe testified to what she remembered about the defendant, Karen Reed, telling her about her cracked taillight.
Ms. McCabe, during that same interview, you also told Trooper Proctor that while driving back to One Meadows, after you had been picked up by Karen at your house, while driving back toward One Meadows, that's actually when Miss Reed told you she had broken her taillight, correct?
Miss Reed told me in the morning at my house.
Okay. I know that's what you're testifying to now. Mm-hmm. What I'm asking is, what did you tell Michael Proctor on January 29th, what's freshest in your mind?
That she had told me she had a cracked taillight when she called me.
You didn't tell him that she indicated she noticed her taillight had been damaged on the drive back to One Meadows after she got to your house?
She mentioned it then as well, but she also had told me when she was on the phone, that's why my husband yelled out that we shouldn't be driving with a cracked taillight.
But in fact, you did not tell Trooper Proctor that story. what you told him was she told you on the drive back to One Meadows after having picked you up, correct?
I told him she told me in the morning and on the drive back.
So if he didn't write that in his report, it's obviously incorrect. Objection.
Sustained.
Of course, that drive back to One Meadows would have been 5:30-ish or so, maybe even a little later, 5:35.
Approximately, yeah, I'm not sure.
Well after she backed out of the driveway and struck another vehicle at One Meadows, correct?
Do you know that?
No, I have no idea.
All right, next question.
Speaking of Trooper Proctor, when you first interviewed with him during that same interview on January 29th, you noticed that he was taking notes, obviously.
Yes, he was.
You told him about your observations of the taillight that day, is that right?
I'd have to see the report, but I believe I told him about it, yes.
And that was literally the same day that you made the observations, is that right?
Yes, it was.
He asked you to describe specifically what the taillight looked like. Mm-hmm. And you did so, correct?
Could I see the report?
All I'm asking right now, I've got the report.
Okay.
If you need it, I'll give it to you. I'm asking about your memory. Ms. McCabe, did you tell him about what the taillight looked like?
If he asked me what the taillight looked like, then I would have told him what it looked like, yes.
And what you told Trooper Proctor on that day is that you, quote, saw a crack in it. Is that right?
I believe I said it was broken and cracked and it was missing pieces.
Isn't it true that what you actually said is, we got out at John's house and looked at the taillight, back right taillight, saw a crack in it, correct?
I said that I saw it and it was cracked and it was missing pieces.
You noted that he was taking notes, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever seen those notes?
No.
Would it refresh your recollection as to what you actually told him in terms of that description to take a look at his notes?
Object to the phrase.
So ask it differently, that's sustained.
Sure. Do you remember exactly the words you used in describing that taillight to Trooper Proctor as you sit here today?
Again, the taillight was cracked and missing pieces.
Okay, I know that's what you're testifying to today, Ms. McCabe. We're all aware of that. You've said it 4 or 5 times now. What I'm asking you is, what did you tell Trooper Proctor on January 29th? That's my question. Do you remember the exact words you used to him on the 29th?
I believe I said it was cracked and missing pieces.
Do you know that, or are you guessing?
I'm not guessing.
Okay. Do you remember that specifically?
I remember describing it as cracked and missing pieces.
Do you remember saying it had a crack, or she saw a crack in it?
I do not remember saying that, no.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of his notes?
Those are his notes.
Ms. McCabe, we can do this all day. Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of his notes? If it wouldn't, just tell us.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay. As you sit here today, are you telling this jury that you deny saying to Trooper Proctor, you saw a crack in it? Are you denying that statement?
I'm not denying it.
So you could have told him that.
He asked me multiple times different questions. I spoke to him at my house, and then he had called me. So maybe one time I said it had a crack in it, and another time I said it was broken and missing pieces.
So it's very possible that that's how you described it on the 29th, Ms. McCabe. It had a crack in it, right?
And missing pieces.
I'm not asking you to finish my sentence. I'm asking you, is it possible that that's what you told him that day? It had a crack in it. Yes or no?
Yes, that was one way.
So what is the defense trying to do with all the challenges to the taillight? What do you think the jury thinks about Karen Reed's taillight? Let's bring in our guest, law enforcement expert and trial consultant Sonny Slaughters with us. So is attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice. Good morning to you both. What do we think the jury is thinking about the taillight? Sonny, would you start us off, please?
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Randolph. First time being on with you. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
It's great to see you guys.
Oh, you too.
I'm wondering if the jury is even getting this, that, okay, it's a taillight. there's so much focus on the tail light, whether it's broken, and not enough focus on what really happened to John O'Keefe, what really took place. And if the tail light was broken prior to the car being towed, then that's where we have the problem at. Because, you know, Jen and Carrie did not even notice it. Karen pointed it out initially when they got together. I'm trying to get my words together. She is the one that pointed it out. If you go back to her own statements, that is where the crux of all of this begins and ends. It is with the things that she said initially before knowing anything at all, before they knew, before they found John. And I'm wondering if the jury is saying, what is happening here when they hear her story versus when they hear somebody else saying something. It's just not making sense that she would know this or point it out before they even found John.
Great point, Sonny. Randolph, your thoughts. What do you think the jury's thinking about this?
Well, good morning, guys. If we knew, that would be, a great insight as to how they're reading these two different sides of the story, right? The Commonwealth's theory is she backed into him. That's why they've got the taillight on the front yard. And the defense is trying to assert this theory that the taillight was cracked. And that's why they keep going after Jen McCabe about saying it was just cracked when she backed into the car in the driveway that night or that morning before the actual incident itself, or after the incident itself. So, again, there's little nuances about, was it cracked? Was it missing pieces? And the point that the defense is trying to make is it was just cracked. It wasn't missing pieces. And then that leads to the theory that somehow those pieces were planted in the front yard at Fairview.
Randolph, thank you. We're not done talking about the taillight. We're going to focus on it this hour and give some more testimony, refreshing to our wonderful audience this morning. Up next, we've got Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara talking about it. The timeline of the taillight. How important is that? We've got Karen Reed's broken taillight on video. There's video of it in the driveway. We'll be right back after this.
Lori Daybell, doomsday cult mom, convicted killer, and now defendant in yet another high-profile trial.
She didn't really care who she hurt.
This time for the attempted murder of a former family member.
Just makes you sad.
And again, she's representing herself.
What about the same problem?
Are you done? Or are you just going to keep...
Will this be the final chapter in the saga
of the doomsday cult mom?
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage today, only on Court TV.
Thanks for being with us here on Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're covering defendant Karen Reed's retrial in Dedham, Massachusetts. She's accused of causing the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And court is canceled for the day because of the heat there. So this morning we're looking back at the most critical testimony in the case. And we're focusing this hour on the taillight that's been hotly debated. Now, here's a clip from Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara testifying for the Commonwealth about the broken pieces of it he found at the crime scene.
There was any other pieces of taillight recovered?
I believe in total we located maybe 6 or 7 pieces of taillight.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, I'm handing you 3 photographs.
Thank you.
Do you recognize the first photograph?
Yes, I do, sir.
And what's in that photograph?
It's a piece of red taillight that we located.
Could you look at the second photograph, please?
Yes, sir.
What do you see there?
It's the same piece of taillight that we recovered. Just a close-up version. You can see the molding of an overturned shovel. That piece of taillight actually came up as one of our team members was shoveling. When he overturned his shovel, the piece of taillight was there, and you can see the actual molding from his shovel.
And the third photograph?
That is another piece of taillight that we located at ground level.
A different piece.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's stick with photographs 1 and 2. Photographs 1 and 2, a close-up and a further view of a piece of taillight. Are those fair and accurate depictions? Does that piece appear that night?
Yes, they are, sir.
All right, move to introduce 2 photographs into evidence.
No objection. Thank you. One's a close-up, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
75A.
Sir, when these items were found, did you examine or study the depth of those items when they were found?
I did not, sir. Gave them a glance when our team members told us we found something, and then Lieutenant Tully took over documentation. I returned to my place, on our line.
Do you know if any of the items were touching the ground or were they on snow?
A couple of the pieces were found at ground level, touching the asphalt.
And you said there was another item found that we just talked about? A separate piece of taillight?
Yes, that photo you showed me was a separate piece of the taillight we located, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you 2 photographs, could you look at the first photograph?
Yes, sir.
What do you see?
A piece of taillight at ground level.
And if you could look at the second photograph, what's that?
It's a close-up enhanced view of that same piece of taillight.
So it's just a different view of the same piece of taillight?
Correct, sir.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction as that piece of taillight appeared that night?
Yes, it is, sir.
I would move these 2 into evidence. 1 photograph and the second is a closer-up view.
No objection. Okay.
Exhibit 76 and 76A.
While you were conducting the search, did anybody but your team, Trooper Tully, the person who was documenting the evidence, did you see any other people who were not law enforcement in the area?
At some point during our search, the media arrived on scene, began filming us or taking photos.
Was there anybody from your department or a different department that was managing the crowd?
No, there were members with Lieutenant Tully that I believe were not state police members, but I wouldn't know how to characterize what their job description was, sir.
At any time, did anybody enter that area or scene, the grid that you and your members were working on, other than your group and Trooper Tully and the people with him?
No, correct. Once we marked off our area, no one came forward of our line. That whole search area was fresh, undisturbed snow as we moved through the area, and no one moved past our line. Even when Lieutenant Tully and the member who works in his unit came to collect the evidence, they didn't move past the point we'd searched up to at that time.
Why were you so careful about anybody coming onto your grid?
We don't want to disturb our scene, but we also don't want to move forward unless we're all moving together, acting in unison.
Given you had brushes and rakes and shovels, did you get through every piece of that area?
We didn't go all the way to where I had marked off originally, because after we'd found everything that was collected, we had gone approximately 8 to 10 feet without finding any other evidence. Lieutenant Tully and I had a discussion. I think we determined we'd found everything we were going to find that evening, and we decided to suspend the search.
Was it a search that took up the whole front yard and street of that area?
Our focus was on the street. We really didn't touch the front yard at all. We started to go over the curb at one point to see if we could search the grass area, but we could not properly, definitively say we were searching it well. As we started to move the snow, we couldn't really differentiate down to the grass level.
How hard was the ground?
It was cold, frozen.
The ground was frozen?
Sir.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we'll hear from the accident reconstructionist for the Commonwealth. Here's a little sampling of what he did in this case to explain how John O'Keefe's injury occurred. We'll be right back. Turning to the big case the world is watching playing out in New York City for just a moment. This morning, stylist Brianna Bongolan returns to the stand in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering case. She testified on Wednesday that Diddy dangled her over a balcony 17 stories high and then tossed her onto some balcony furniture. Testimony resumes at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll have a live report for you coming up in our next hour of Court TV. For now, let's go back to Dedham, Massachusetts. We're talking about the taillight and the timeline in this homicide case. A key witness for the prosecution was accident reconstruction expert Dr. Judson Welcher. Here he is talking about the demonstration that he did to prove what happened to John O'Keefe's arm.
Dr. Welcher, let me ask you a question. When you're engaging in these demonstrations, are you attempting to try to show exactly how Mr. O'Keefe was struck?
No. So we don't know exactly how he was struck. And pedestrian impacts are extremely sensitive to exact angles. And so where exactly your foot is, whether your foot's off the ground, can have an effect on where you end up after that. We just don't have enough information in this case to determine all that information. We know the taillight was broken. We know the glass was broken. We know we have damage to the rear of the Lexus. We know we have lacerations in Mr. O'Keefe's arm. So I'm trying to see if there's any correlation between all those.
Well, can body posture on a clip or a side swipe collision change the trajectory or the injury?
Of course.
Can the way somebody moves or reacts before impact change it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What are other things that can change the trajectory of the person and the injuries?
So, for example, if you get hit and knocked off balance or clipped and knocked off balance, you can take additional steps. That'll affect how far your body travels. If you have one foot on the ground versus the other foot on the ground, affects how the body rotates. If your arm is at 90 degrees or 85 degrees, will affect the kinematics. We attempted to model different possibilities, and we're getting results that were all over the map. Small changes in the pedestrian position give you huge change in the output. And so from the tech stream data, we don't know exactly when in the tech stream data he was hit. So we don't even know the exact impact speed. In most pedestrian reconstructions, you typically have a point where the impact occurred, like where the person was, like in the crosswalk, for example, and they get hit and their tire leaves a rubber scruff. That's called the area of impact or point of impact. You then can look at how far they were thrown and using some laws of physics, calculate how fast the car had to be going. Well, we don't have that in this case. We don't know exactly where Mr. O'Keefe was on the roadway when this happened. Sorry, I'm about to go to the next slide. Oh.
Without having an exact point of impact or an exact speed or an exact body position, are you able to specifically replicate the actual collision and the way Mr. O'Keefe's body would move?
Exactly replicate? No. And again, in terms of how he would move, again, we don't know where exactly on the roadway he started. So in terms of how he moved, that's a function of where he started. We don't know if when he was clipped, he took an additional step before falling backwards. So that will change how far you are off the roadway. So the impact, which you'll see in a second, even at 2 miles an hour, will induce rotation of the body. So depending on the speed, the higher the speed, the more rotation. So if I may, so slide 111, this is simply showing where I walk sideways, how this lines up with the location of the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's arm. Here's the post-contact scuffing on the taillight. Here's a picture of Miss Reed's vehicle on the right-hand side. So now I said, okay, that was me walking into the car. Let's have the car drive into me. I did this at very low speeds. And you'll see, and we'll show this from 2 different angles. That's me showing I'm doing test 2. This is from a camera that we have pointing down at it. This is the speed. You'll see it's only about a 2-mile-an-hour impact. But even a 2-mile-an-hour impact redirects me back and causes me to rotate and take a step.
Yes.
Sir, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of engineering certainty about the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm and forearm regarding its orientation relative to the broken taillight on the defendant's Lexus?
Yes, Your Honor, may I read my report, my opinion?
Okay.
The location and orientation of the laceration on John O'Keefe's right forearm and arm are consistent with the geometry and orientation of the right taillight of the Reed 2021 Lexus LX 570.
All right, let's talk about Dr. Judson Welcher's testimony and how it affected the case overall. Let's bring back in Sonny Slaughter and Randolph Rice. Randolph, I'll start with you, please. I saw someone online, and I wish I could remember where I saw it, and I thought this clip was, this comment was so perfect, who said that Judson Welcher is to the Karen Reed case what Dr. Kenny Kinsey was to the Murdaugh case, in how they both explained something and made the jury able to visualize and see and made the event come to life and make sense. Rather than just talking about it, they showed the jury how it happened. Your thoughts on that comparison, if you think it's a good one?
Yeah, Julie, you made a great analogy there. I mean, that's a great way to put it. I mean, and that's why the Commonwealth called him as the last witness, because he was so powerful. If you're a juror and you dismiss all these alternative theories, Dr. Welcher comes in and confirms your beliefs. He seals the deal for you with the visuals and the possibilities of exactly how John O'Keefe got hit with that car. The only problem I had was there were some uncertainties that he had, because he said, we just don't know the way John O'Keefe could have been standing, so that changes a lot of the kinetics of this potential accident.
Right, that's a great point, Randolph, certainly, fair point. And this is a little thing that came out of it, but I think it put to bed some, we know everything in this case is, debated to death online, and we know what's online doesn't count, what's in the courtroom counts. But that injury to John O'Keefe's right eye, and I remember thinking, I think Hank Brennan is going to prove something coming up with this, because he mentioned when they were going on the jury view, he said, pay attention to the height of the SUV and that kind of bar that protrudes out from it. And then we see in the video when this doctor talked about John O'Keefe's exact height, how everything corresponds, where that bar would have hit his eye, where his elbow would have been right on the taillight. Sonny, what did you think when it comes to precision? You've seen a lot of people testify in the courtroom. How does Dr. Welcher stack up? Oh, you're muted, Sonny. Start again for us, please.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
I think he was excellent. I think he provided the lens that was necessary to explain how this could have potentially happened, even though there was some inconsistency because there is no other video or no other dynamics that could explain exactly how everything happened. I think he offered some foundation for the other potential ways that would show how he got hurt on his arm, how he got hurt on his head, and what could have happened overall. And I think that gives jurors an opportunity to say, you know what, that makes sense, and I can see this happening, and put the pieces together. They might not get all of the pieces straight at the first, for the first go around, but I think this case will come together for the jurors based on the expert testimony and who they have been provided information that makes sense to them. Their perspective is going to matter in this case.
Yeah, definitely, Sonny. Something else I thought was really helpful with Judson Welcher in his testimony. Randolph, I'd love to bounce this off of you. From the way he presented it to the jury about the motion by Karen Reed driving forward first in her car, going away from the house after she let John out, but then putting it in neutral, then in reverse, the backing up, and where the car would have gone past him so that there would be a view of him out of her window so that she would have seen she hit him if she did hit him. When this expert was up there, to me, that was really illuminating, because I have to say, in the first trial, I couldn't picture how this happened. I was picturing like a three-point turn. I had doubt as to whether she would have seen it or maybe just thought, oh, I felt something, heard something, you know, based on her statements or dad's statements. But then when he shows the jury these videos and how he did the recreation, Randolph, that murder 2 charge, you were a prosecutor, you served in that role for a long time. Did it become more substantiated to you at all through the testimony of Judson Welcher?
Well, Julie, you make a great point, and I think something that most people aren't thinking about is that for that first count, that top count, you need that mens rea, that knowledge, that knowing, that intent to cause this injury or this death. And so that's how the Commonwealth then ties in or gets that, I guess, that evidence, so that they need that intent on the part of Karen Reed to cause this injury. You know, this is, again, does the jury buy that? Does she see this? I don't know, you know, but I get and say, you know, Dr. Welcher certainly helps visualize how this could have happened for them.
Yeah, definitely. Randolph, thank you. Let's do this. We'll hit a break. When we come back, we're going to play the testimony of the defense's police witness who said that the taillight didn't look as broken to him. We'll play it next.
Karen Reed is in the midst of the retrial of the century.
She is factually innocent. She's guilty.
There's something wrong in this county.
Come at me.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Friday night, the WNBA is on iron. The Dream take on the Sun.
Mabry with the finish.
Then, the Wings host the Sparks.
She got another one.
Coverage begins Friday night at 7. Find Ion wherever you watch. Ion, it's on.
Act now.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. This hour, we're focused on Karen Reed's case in Massachusetts. Court is canceled for the day because it's hot there and the fan is noisy in the courtroom. So this morning, we're looking back at some of the testimony that's come in as case evidence so far. We're focusing on the taillight on her Lexus SUV, the rear taillight in particular, and how it's been so hotly debated. The defense, in their case, called a police witness named Nicholas Barrows. Officer Nicholas Barrows took the stand about what he saw. He's a police officer in Dighton, where Karen Reed's parents apparently live, and when her Lexus was at her parents' house that morning of the incident in question, he testified about what he observed about it. Take a listen.
Did you observe anything of note about the rear end of that black SUV?
Yes, I noted in a report that there was damage to the taillight.
Can you describe for the juror, by the way, which taillight are we talking about?
The right rear taillight.
Can you describe for the jurors what you noted in terms of the damage to the right rear taillight?
I noted that the report said that there was right rear damage to that taillight.
When you say damage, have you ever described that damage previously?
I have.
Can you tell us what that description is?
There was, it was damaged, the taillight was damaged, but there was a crack missing, but it was not completely damaged.
When you say there was a crack, do you mean there was a piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you would call it?
The piece was about maybe this big.
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches.
And how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in there.
I want to show you a photo Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to show Exhibit 13. It's been previously marked. Do you see what's depicted in this photograph?
I do.
What does that appear to be, just generally?
The right rear tail light.
Of what?
The Lexus SUV.
Is that consistent with the black Lexus SUV that you saw at the Reed residence?
That was the black Lexus. That was not the tail light the day I was there.
Can you do me a favor, Mr. Wolk? With the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear tail light, please?
Okay.
Do you see the condition of that tail light as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear tail light when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
That tail light is completely smashed out.
Does it appear that there are additional pieces of taillight that are removed from this taillight condition than when you saw it at the Reed residence? Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Of course. Describe specifically, other than the fact that it's different, describe in detail for the jurors what is different about this taillight as it's photographed here.
That middle section was intact when I was there. Towards that right side, where that large chunk is, that's what was missing.
I'm going to hand you a green laser pointer. If you can, there's two displays, one monitor directly in front of you and one to your right. If you could use the one to your right, it's a little easier on the jurors. Describe what's different about that taillight.
Can you see that? So this area was intact. This is what I saw was missing here.
May I approach?
Yes.
If the entire taillight had been broken out as it's depicted in this photograph, would you have made note of that?
Okay. Sustained.
Do you believe you would remember if the taillight, well, let me ask it a different way. The piece that you saw missing, but not completely damaged, is the reason that you used the phrase not completely damaged to highlight the fact that there was still more taillight attached to the vehicle that is depicted in this photo.
Sustained.
We can take this down. As you sit here and recall back to that, your observations, and you observed this for over the course of how long would you say? How many minutes?
Probably 20 minutes or so.